Mr. President, thank you very much. I don't know what constitutes drama in your book, but that was very dramatic for me and for everybody else in the room. That was a dramatic Oval Office meeting, so I'm going to push back on that. In addition to that, can you clarify if there was any discussion around the African Growth and Opportunity Act? There's a lot of discussion about South Africa arriving here with a different option in their back pocket were that framework not to be renewed in September. And of course, it's critical to the trade relationship between South Africa. Did you get clarity? Did you ask about that? And did you discuss some of the geopolitical concerns? There seems to be a narrowing of the divisions that have framed the relationship on Gaza, that have framed the relationship on Ukraine. Was that part of the discussion? Are you going to work collaboratively moving forward in terms of arresting those two pressing issues? Thank you.
Thank you, Sherwin. I'm going to take John.
Mr. President, John Eligo with the New York Times. Just two things. One, you mentioned that the U.S. president can be a great signal for investor confidence in South Africa. Obviously, what we just saw in there was not sort of a signal of investor confidence, what we saw from Trump in the public sphere. So how do you suppose going forward that you all will get to a place where you can see President Trump expressing something that would show investor confidence? And then the second one, when he was playing the video and talking about the white genocide. At one point he brought up apartheid and saying, I know that was bad, but no one's looking at this. You are someone who was fighting against that system. You lived through that system of apartheid. You had to endure it as a Black South African. Obviously you're a very measured diplomatic person. Just what did you feel in that moment as a South African, as a Black South African, and you heard someone try to equate a non-existent genocide to what you all experienced during apartheid?
Thank you, John. Sidi?
Thank you, John. Ooh, finally, I get picked to ask a question unlike the Oval. Sidi Madia from Eyewitness News. Mr. President, just two quick questions. What of the region? I think Sherwin asked you now about AGOA, and we know what the greater benefit is for AGOA. But if South Africa was coming in, and some of the ministers have said it, with an alternative deal in mind about South African interest, one has to worry about the rest of the region and the impact thereof. You can't prosper alone in Africa. We are seeing that. So conversations around the region and the rest of the continent. And then the Golfers' presence in the Oval. If maybe I can just get a bit of a better understanding. From what I'm hearing and understand, they were not at the behest of South Africa's government. You spoke now about how Mr. Gore was left outside, in part because of the issue around the numbers. Can we understand their presence there and even the messaging? A lot of South Africans reacting to the message and saying, could there not have been a better briefing about what needs to be said? Thank you.
Mr. President, we'll just take those three for now. Thank you.
Yes, the issue of AGOA did come up, and it's going to be further discussed, as I said, in the engagements that we're going to have. The Secretary of Commerce and our Minister of Trade and Industry and Competition are going to be able to take those discussions forward, including some of our proposals, which proposals, by the way, do incorporate the issue of AGOA, because we would like to see ourselves continuing in AGOA. And continuing in AGOA really is about prospering our continent. They even said that there are 32 countries from Africa that participate in AGOA, from the mouth of the Secretary of Commerce, and that is so. So it is top of mind for them as well. So we want to continue with those discussions. And it sort of dovetails with the question that Sidi asked about if we were to do a separate deal with the United States, would that not amount to South Africa prospering alone? No, we always want the entire continent to prosper. And we always take into account that what we do should also include advancing the interests of our sister countries on the continent. And when we do settle down to talk about, for instance, tariffs, we are part of this Southern African Customs Union. So we will be talking about tariffs in that broader context. which means that we will not be looking at ourselves alone. We'll be looking at the interests of our sister countries in the sub-region, if you like, which is SACU, but we will also be looking after the interests and advancing arguments to prosper the interests of our sister countries on the continent. We are by far the largest economy, and depends on at what time it's measured between ourselves, Nigeria and Egypt, but we are one of the three big economies, and our general orientation has always been to prosper as we prosper together with other countries. So even as we do get involved in these negotiations, we will always have an AU perspective, a SADC perspective, and a general sub-Saharan perspective as well. Sherwin asked, did we discuss geopolitical collaboration on geopolitical matters? Yes, we found that our interests do coincide in as far as peace building and peacemaking is concerned. And we did compliment President Trump in being very forward in advocating for peace in our region between Rwanda and the DRC, and also Russia and Ukraine. And we outlined precisely what our involvement has been over the years with Russia and Ukraine. And we did share that we're one of the very few countries in the world that speaks to both. We were condemned at an early stage, but I think much later people realized that the role that we play is a constructive role, because we have been able to deal with intricate issues that involve the two countries, about the children and prisoners of war. And he appreciated that, and he recognized the role that we play. And even as President Zelensky came to South Africa, he says he wanted to know where Zelensky was, and he had that, oh, he's in South Africa. And before then, I had had a telephone conversation with him. Then he said, oh, I now remember he's in South Africa visiting President Ramaphosa. So the role that we play in peace-building missions and processes around the world is recognized and is known, and it was also confirmed today. John from the New York Times says about the positive disposition of President Trump that it was not so clear. It may not have appeared that way, but the issue that he kept raising, or he raised prominently, is the issue of genocide. And when he was asked by one of you, and thank God one of you asked, whether he was convinced that there was genocide, he says, no, he's not convinced. Much as he flighted the video and all those press clippings. And in the end, I mean, I do believe that there's doubt and disbelief in his head about all this. And I think today's meeting, and particularly when he heard from the other members of the delegation, from Minister Steenhuisen to even Johan Rupert and President of COSATU, Losi, and all that, they spoke from their own experiences and what they know, and that in many ways will have deposited in his head some information about what he's been hearing and seeing. And I'd like to see this as a process. And the fact that he and I have agreed that we're going to meet again, and we will meet at the G20. By meeting again, I'm not saying immediate, so that you don't say, when are you meeting, as you will be tempted to say. That we have said we will meet again. And of course, one of the moments that we will is going to be at the G20. So that is a process to ensure that the new information, or the real information, may I add, is really sort of registered in his head. The issue of whether what he terms as genocide can be equated to the struggle. And of course it cannot, because there is just no genocide in South Africa. And of course, it is an issue of how one looks at it. As they say sometimes, the shape of the mountain depends on which point or which direction you are looking at it. And in this case, we cannot equate what is alleged to be genocide to what we went through in the struggle, because people were killed because of the oppression that was taking place in our country. So you cannot equate that. The presence, as Tsidi asks, of golfers in the meeting, as I think I said, right at the beginning of my input, I said, when I spoke to him, we agreed that we should meet, and he said, bring along with you Gary Player, Annie Els, and Retief Goosen, because he loves them. He's a golfer, he's an avid golfer, and he speaks about golf quite a lot, and he respects the South African icons. And he even asked, what is it about South Africa that produces such great golfers? And I said, it's the water that we drink, and I guess much more. Minister Steenhuisen said, you know, the environment, the atmosphere, and the food. So he wanted to see them again, and to see them in a different setting, in suits and all that. Could there have been a better briefing? We didn't have the opportunity. Some of them just arrived today or just late last night. But it is what it is. And they spoke about their own experience. And it's an experience that we're not hiding. It is there. But what we did do is to present and represent our country. And we represented our country very well. Those golfers are patriotic South Africans. Any else even produced his passport. And one needs to respect that they sort of play on the global stage, but they still regard themselves as South Africans, so they are patriotic. And when they speak, as they speak about their own experience, sometimes you cannot just say you will tell things that just people want to hear. Sometimes you speak about your own experience, and that's what they did. And the way it lands is the way it lands. But in the end, I do not believe that it dilutes or detracts from the import of our message today. We were able to present South Africa, even within the challenges and controversies that have been spread around our country, but we were able in a very unified way to present the South Africa that we have, with all its challenges, with all its problems. That's what we did.